Okay, so I was asleep, and it was as if I had been walking with God, and I heard a voice say to me, like, at some point, you're going to give birth, and I don't want to hear anything about you're afraid, or you're not going to be afraid. And then, so there was this black man, and I had found the black man, or he was somewhere, and I was like, I ran up to him, or I went down to him, and whoever he was, like, it was as if I were familiar with him, but that I didn't really know him. Like, I didn't know him that well. And he was in the land, and he was by himself somewhere, and I had gone to him, and I said, like, as if he knew what was going on. And I said, I was excited. I was very, very, very excited. And I told him, I said, God said I'm going to give birth. And I was like, and he said, he don't want to hear nothing about me being afraid. That he said that I'm not going to be afraid. Because I am afraid to give birth, because I don't want anybody to steal the baby, and I don't want anything to be wrong with the delivery where I die in childbirth. I don't want anything to happen to the baby, like coming out, and I don't want anything to be wrong with the baby, like physically or mentally, because of the long pregnancy and a lot of the trauma that I experienced throughout the pregnancy, and the lack of nutrition. It's just a lot, and I don't want to have to contact the hospital and bring in a newborn that they were denying. And then I don't want to have a baby around strangers or people who were involved or possibly involved with covering this up. So I am afraid to give birth. Very afraid. But it was almost as if I had been talking with God. And it was like he was with me face to face. And I don't really remember anything about actually being in his face or seeing his face, but it was almost as if, or like he had been walking with me or talking with me somehow. And it was like he was like disciplining me in the way, like I don't want to hear nothing about you being afraid. Like you're going to give birth. And I don't want to hear nothing about you being afraid. And I was like, I ran to the guy after we had talked, and I think that what the significance on the fact that why I even feel it was God, because it was very different. Like when he spoke, and it was like very familiar, not like a familiar spirit, like someone who I knew, but the voice. And then like I could trust him. And then there was the young man, and I had run to the young man, and it was almost as if this young man had knew what was going on as far as my pregnancy, but that he was somewhat involved, or had somewhat become involved with covering it up, and that maybe he didn't believe me at one point that I was pregnant, and then he knew about the conspiracy to cover it up, and he was just kind of going along with it. So I ran down to the young man, because I've been afraid of, like, what if I don't dilate, and what if I have placenta previa, and, I've looked it all up, and I'm like, what if, I start to hemorrhage or whatever, like, so I've been very afraid. And I ran down to the man, and it was almost as if it was God for real talking to me, because my spirit said that it was God. And I went to the young man, and I said, God said, and I was so excited. So, it was as if God was really talking to me, and as if he really said this. So I said to the young man, I was so excited. I said, God said I'm going to give birth. And the young man was kind of like just listening. And I was like, and he said he don't want to hear nothing about me being afraid. And I said it very sternly, and then I was saying something, and the doctor is going to get in trouble, like, it was like, I don't know if I necessarily said the doctor's going to get in trouble, but it was like a spiritual emphasis about something about the doctor who lied, and that I'm afraid because I guess maybe something that because the doctor lied, or something, and I was like, or there's going to be repercussions for the doctor, but it was something about the doctor, and I was speaking to a young black male, and I told him, God said I'm going to give birth, and God said I'm not going to be afraid, or he don't want to hear nothing about me being afraid, and they made me more confident about going through with the birth, because when the doctor lied and said that I was not pregnant, that messes with the woman mentally, and it made me afraid to give birth. I gotta keep this short because I ate a Reese's cup and I'm a little nauseous and I want to go back to bed. But basically, like, I don't remember much about that, but there was like a seashore. It was almost as if we were by the water, like there was a beach, and like we were by the water, and that like it was a different setting than the city, and there was like the brush when like you go down to the beach, maybe like Galveston or Savannah, and the stairs that they have by the sand. And there weren't much buildings. Excuse me, there weren't much buildings around like normally in a town, in a city. And then I recall there was a young man in a house, and there was some emphasis, because I don't remember it all, and I don't think that it's meant for me to remember it all. But there was a young man, and there was emphasis on the fact that people have been putting me in different rooms in the house, that I was in one room in the bedroom, then I was in another room, and there was emphasis on food and sex, that the young man had been trying to be extremely sexually active with me, and that they were saying they were going to get me food and things like that. And then that the young man had lied to me, and that he didn't really want to be sexually active with me. Excuse me. And that there was emphasis on the fact that he didn't really want to give me the food or the snacks either. And that excuse me, there was emphasis on the fact that he was doing a job, and that he didn't want to give me the snacks that he was promising to give me, or that he was like showing me at first, like he had shown me, like giving me snacks. But then once I had gotten into this room, that he was leaving me in there and going into another room, and that I had to steal the snacks, that I had to go and sneak the snacks, because he took them, because he had taken the snacks away, or that he had done something with the snacks. Sorry, I didn't have the heater on, and it was extremely cold, and I got a little stopped up, and I turned the heat on because the temperature dropped. But the young man, it was emphasis on the fact that there were snacks there. There were snacks in the home, and he kind of lured me in the room with the snacks. And then he had hid the snacks in the house, or he took them away out of the room and left me in the room, and that I had access to the snacks in the room, and that I had stolen the snacks, that I had taken the snacks, and I ran and got snacks, and that I had the snacks in the room with me, that I had them in the room with me, and that I was like, well, I had to steal them, and I had to steal the food. And they were it wasn't real food. It was like cakes and, like just junk food, sweets and stuff. And I had stolen them, but it was like, I was saying, like, just get the food, like, get the stuff, like, who cares what they think, just go and grab it and hurry and come and eat it or hide it or whatever. And that's what I did. And so, the man had left me in there by myself, and I had come out of there. And then, there was emphasis on something with my son, because Melbourne was nursing on my breast before I went to jail. I nursed Melbourne his entire life before he was taken from me, and before I went to jail for protecting us. But there was emphasis on him trying to come and suck my breast. And I had not seen Melbourne in a very long time. And I was lying down, and there was a man in there, like a black man, and he had like walked out the room, and I don't recall who he was, but he walked out of the room, and Melbourne came up on me, and he saw my breast, and he put his mouth on my breast, and he started to like nurse on my breast, and I had the remnants of how it used to feel when he used to nurse, and there was milk at first, and it was like a little bit of milk, and he was like nursing, but then like it wasn't a lot, like it was like a sip, like, and then he got up and climbed down, and he was a big boy, But he wasn't like as tall as I would picture him and imagine him off of the pictures. Like it was like he was still like the 2 years old, 3 years old phase. And this was around the time he was taken from me by Cynthia O'Vera. He was like around that age when I was arrested. Because he looked still very small, like but he looked old enough to walk around and things like that. And he got off the bed, and and it's like he didn't want my breast no more. Excuse me, but he didn't want my breast anymore. Like, well, he wanted it, and then he like started trying to nurse on it, and there was like a little sip at first, and he was still small. Then he got bigger, and then he was still trying to nurse on it, and then he just looked at it, and then he wanted to climb down. And then I heard the spirit tell me, like, or say something like, well, when there's not any milk left, or when it's time for him, he'll get off on his own. Because Melbourne was still on my breast when I was arrested for protecting us, and he was not pulling away from my breast or getting down. And it was as if the spirit was telling me that, like, at the time he still was nursing, and that if there's milk in the breast, he'll still nurse. But when it's time for him to get off, he'll get off on his own. And there were people trying to tell me not to nurse him, but we won't go into that right now. I'm going to just stay on the topic because it makes me think a lot about what was going on, and I'll go into more interpretations on my interpretation video. I'm going to try to combine a lot of the interpretations in one video about what's going on, but this was different because when I was nursing him before I was arrested, I was tired of nursing him, but he wasn't tired of nursing, and I was giving him regular milk too, and he was starting to take that, but he was still nursing as well, and I could feel the milk coming out, but I was very tired, and I could feel that it was getting very close, or around the time where I was going to have to stop nursing him, yeah. But in this dream, he completely pulled away on his own, and he was like, ain't nothing in there, so it was very different because before I went to jail, like, he was still getting milk, so whether it was a lot or whatever, he was drinking juice and water, and then he was drinking Enfamil as well, so, this was very different. Like, he was a big boy, and he tried to get on my breast, and I was used to nursing him, so there was something coming out of my breast. There was some sort of like a small liquid coming out of my breast, but it wasn't like a lot, like when you nurse a big baby, like how my breast used to get full of milk after I gave birth to Mel, and after he had come home, after like a few days, I had gotten a lot of milk, and there was pretty much a lot of milk in my breast up until the time where he was like 2 and stuff, because he was sucking it all out so quick. And then it was like he was sucking the life out of me, and I had gotten him to start drinking juice and water and other milk, but he was still nursing. And, as long as I was able to rest and eat and things, like, I still had some supply of milk for him to drink. But this was so different because, like, I was like, oh, I remember I used to nurse my baby, and he was a small baby, and I felt the feeling of, it was like when he was like before he turned 2, and I went to jail before he turned 2. And but he was like it looked like he was a little like around that age or a little younger, like 1.5 or whatever. And I could feel the milk coming out of my breast. So when he nursed, I could feel the milk. So I could feel it come out. And then he was big all of a sudden. And he had a little haircut or whatever. And I didn't cut his hair like when he was 1.5, 2. I would, I went to jail before he turned 2, for protecting us. But before he turned 2, I would braid his hair. Melbourne's hair was long, and I would braid it. And so his hair was braided when he was nursing at first. And I felt the milk come out of my boob, like out of my nipple when he nursed, so I could feel it if there's milk. And then he got, all of a sudden he was older, and he was hopping off the bed on his own, like climbing off the whole bed and running around. And he had a little haircut, and his hair was like that and curly, and he was so cute. And he was still my little baby. And then he didn't want to nurse anymore. He had my boobie in his mouth, and then it's like he wasn't getting anything out of it. And he hopped down off the bed, and then I heard the Spirit tell me, it was like the Holy Spirit, and then he say, okay, time to give him some real milk now. And then it was like the baby will let you know when when he's ready. And then there was something in my breast though, still, but it wasn't for Melbourne. And it was time for Melbourne to get the big boy milk, the regular milk, because he had tried to nurse me when he saw that something had come out of my breast. And I think it reminded him of, when he was nursing, when he was 1.5, and before he turned 2, he was 22 months old when I was incarcerated for protecting myself. And I was taken from my baby boy, and I had been nursing him, and I still had milk. So I think when he saw when he saw this little liquid substance coming out of my breast, he tried to hop on my breast and he did hop on my breast and tried to nurse on there, and it was like a little sip, like nothing even come out enough for him as a big boy now. So then that Spirit was like, the baby will let you know if there's nothing in there. And it's time for Melbourne to get big boy milk. Give him some regular milk. And then I took my breast and I started to squeeze it after he ran off, because he wasn't interested in the boob anymore. And I had been nervous that I wouldn't be able to nurse a baby around him, because he always wanted to be on my breast. And so he had hopped on my breast and tried to nurse on me, but then he hopped down, and there was something still coming out of my breast, but it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough for Melbourne, and it was not fully full. It was like something was coming out of my nipple and all of the milk ducts. And I took my nipple and I squeezed it, and then there was clear coming out of it. It was like the milk ducts had kind of been closed or whatever, or crusted or whatever. I don't know, because my breasts aren't crusty, but it was like something was coming off of the milk ducts, and it wasn't a lot, but I squeezed it, and it kind of looked a little bit like how it looked before I had Melbourne. And then I squeezed it, and then out of all 5, I don't know if it was 5 but it looked like maybe 5 milk ducts. There was like a little bit of clear, just a little bit come out of my nipple, like both of my nipples, and it was enough. It was enough for me to see that there was something coming out, but it wasn't like full supply of milk. Like, it wasn't a full supply of milk. It was like a colostrum, like not a milk for a big boy or a big baby, like there was not any milk for him. There was not any milk for Melbourne, but there was that little clear. It was like not a lot at all. It was just like when your breast is getting prepared for a newborn. But there wasn't any like milk supply yet. But there was almost like and it wasn't even like the colostrum on the first day after you giving birth. It was like how sometimes your breasts leak a little bit of the clear before you give birth. That's what it was like. And it came out like when I squoze it. It was already coming out a little, but then when I squoze it, it came out just a little more. Like, yeah, like it was there. It was like emphasis on like the spirit telling me it's there. Like it's right there. Like the kind you get before you give birth. And so I was lying in the bedroom, but it was almost like my bedroom was a living room, but that it was in the bedroom, but that it was a living room. And Melbourne seemed to be fine. Like he just was just like a regular little boy. I miss him so much. And he had a lot of like hues of my complexion, but he still was just as I had remembered him. Very lively, very lively, full of energy, beautiful, baby, my little boy, but he was a big boy. And so then, after that, like there was something about my sister Larissa and my dad Andrew, and there was something about money, because I don't recall everything, but there was something about money. And Larissa had gotten some money in the dream, and I was left outside, but it was daytime, and there was a beach, and there was brush, and there was a shore, and there was a breeze over me, and there was something about like $15 and like $15,000. I don't know, but there was something about like my family and a large lump sum of money. And then Larissa had come to me with Andrew, and there were like, she was traveling, and I have an account, and there was like someone saying they were gonna put money into the account, or that they were gonna give me money, and it was only like $100, and then the money didn't go through, and then the Holy Spirit was like, "That's okay." That I had a little money in my account, and that I would just make do with that, and that it wasn't much at all, but that I would just make do with that. not and that I didn't get any money from them, from Andrew or Larissa. And then there was emphasis. There was something about a flood, and there was like two islands, and I don't know if this is symbolic, but there were like two islands. One island was the east side, one island was the west side, and Larissa was contemplating going back and forth between the two islands, and there was a flood, and it was dangerous to go. It was dangerous for her to go. And there was something about a plane, and her having to get on the plane to go to the island, or to go to one of the islands. And then there was something about her being Drew's golden child. Something about Larissa was the child that he esteemed, and that she was being treated like a teenager who was going on a trip, and who was being treated as if she was in high school, and that wherever she went, it was almost like she was I'm not gonna like she was at a mental state where she still like needed my dad to, or where she was in a mental state where she still had my dad doing things for her as if she were in high school, and that he was kind of frustrated with that, but that he still kind of went along with it because the spirit of my mother, because the spirit of my mother was with Larissa or upon Larissa, or that he would get glimpse, or that Larissa would kind of look like my mother sometimes, or that she just had my mother's spirit. I don't know, but it was something about my mother, and that he was giving her, he was